Yo, what's up, everybody? Paul, Hickey, and Kendall McKee here. Welcome to the Sports Card Strategy Show, brought to you by NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Content Network, home of the Sports Card Investment Report, where we want you to go and save 20% by using the promo code NoOffSeason, all lowercase. And also, special thanks to MarketMoversApp.com, where you can go and get the first month for only $1 by using the promo code NoOffSeason as well. So promo code NoOffSeason everywhere. Use it at NoOffSeason.com on the Sports Card Investment Report to save. Use it at MarketMoversApp.com to save. And prep for your sports card investing even more than you are right now. And Kendall and I got a lot to talk about today. We're in May, and we're in the middle of the NBA playoffs, and the baseball season is underway, and a lot of other stuff going on. Kendall, how you doing today, my man?
I'm good. Paul, if you guys are watching, you guys can tell that I'm not in my normal location. I'm traveling. I got a wedding that I'm coming to this week in Texas, my hometown. But the grind does not stop. We are here. We took the mic with us, and we've got a couple things planned for this week. But man, what an exciting past couple of days of basketball! Like, just these playoffs have not exactly gone like how I thought they were going to go. Like, you know, I guess my tournament bracket, in terms of if I had made one for this playoffs, they are not going like I thought they would have gone.
Yeah, it's a little bit the modern NBA is a little bit different than like the NBA in the 80s and 90s, where back in those days you kind of had to earn your spot. And it took a few years to earn your spot. So you expect like the Phoenix Suns to continue to earn their spot, or, you know, you expect it to take longer for the Boston Celtics to get where they are, or you expect, you know, the Atlanta Hawks to make moves forward, and you know, there's all these different things, you know, and even the Mavericks like coming back and beating the Suns. So all these different things are happening that's kind of like out of order.
Right.
And so it's shaken up the Sports Card Investment Report. I want to talk a little bit about that as part of our NBA playoff takeaways. And I know you want to talk about a particular topic related to a player in Boston. So we definitely need to hit on him. So first, let's talk a little bit about the Sports Card Investment Report, because I put out some content today actually for members only. So the first two members only articles went out today. And I'm excited. I put a lot of time into them. It normally only takes me like a couple hours to write an article, to be honest, but because I just keep a lot of information in my brain, and then just when I get a chance to put it all out there, it doesn't take me that long. But these particular articles took a few days to write. And one of the reasons it took a few days to write is because of the game sevens, right? We didn't know what was going to happen with Giannis versus Tatum. I know a lot of people are invested in those guys, and we didn't know what was going to happen with Booker and Chris Paul versus Luka. So you had this big shakeup at the top of the Sports Card Investment Report, and so now we've got Steph number 1, Tatum number 2, Luka number 3. This is overall. We moved Giannis down to number 4. We've got some other sport athletes in between him and Ja, who's at number 9. And then we actually moved Anthony Edwards to the next NBA player. He's at number 12. So we've got some baseball players in between him and Ja.
Not even a playoff guy.
Right. Not even in the playoffs. And then you've got Devin Booker at 15. So I kind of want to explain this as to what I did here, because I think that, and this is going to be an interesting discussion topic that has more to do than just me talking about the investment report. But first, I kind of want to get this out of the way. Mm-hmm. So to me, this is going to change multiple more times between now and the end of June. And I think that you have to move. I think Steph has to move to number 1 because he's a GOAT and he's active and he's still in the NBA playoffs. So to me, it kind of like default Steph. With Giannis being out, he's now down to number 4, but because he's still number 4 because he's still Giannis and he was our number 1. And so one playoff elimination doesn't change who he is as a player, but I feel like you have to move him down because there's one less huge marker that he can hit now. And so that's the rationale for moving Giannis down, and then moving
in the short term,
Tatum and Luka into 2 and 3. Yeah, and this is like, I want to also have a discussion around the term investment, because our new friend and member Paul Fisher of the Sports Card Investment Report brought up to me kind of the definition of how he sees investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way that I see investment is that kind of define it as any time you spend any amount of money on anything with any kind of plan, short term, intermediate term, long term, it's an investment. So to me, you can still go out and buy Tatum and Luka if you think they're going to win the NBA championship, or if you think they're at least going to advance to the next round. Now, that's a hard call to make, because Luka's got a tough series against the Warriors and Tatum has to face the Heat. So I still think they're number 2 and number 3, because they still project out to be long-term, but now they have the marker that Giannis and Ja and Booker don't have anymore. And so we've moved Chris Paul down quite a bit. We've moved Booker down quite a bit, but this is going to change, right? Because we're going to reassess at the end of the NBA. We're going to actually reassess at the end of each series. So I think that kind of gets that out of the way. But what I want to ask you about next for the NBA playoff takeaways, I think some other shows are probably just going to regurgitate sales before something happened and sales after something happened. But what I want to talk about is a little bit more strategic than that. I want to talk about the definition of the term investment, first of all. And I want to talk about sort of timing the market with these guys, and expectations related to like buying in right now. Sort of ranking them is hard, because you have to add the context around, if I'm going to move Tatum and Luka up that much, I'm basically saying like you can buy them right now, but buying them right now is a huge risk. So it actually, in some respects, makes more sense to buy guys like Anthony Edwards right now, or guys like even Kyrie Irving right now, because their seasons are over. So I think it's important to have a discussion around this concept of like, is it healthy to make sports card investments at this point in time, using basketball as an example? And you could use any sport as an example, but in mid-May, is it healthy to predict who's going to win the NBA championship when there's still 4 teams remaining and anybody can still win it, and go out and spend an exorbitant amount of money on a player's card? And I know you bought Jason Tatum a while back, so maybe you can weave that into this discussion around, we talk a lot on this show about you want to be holding the guy well before something can happen in terms of a marker. And then you want to have a plan for that guy. The last thing I'll say before I let you talk is I did write quite a bit in the Sports Card Investment Report premium version about when to sell guys like Devin Booker. And it is a little bit of a failsafe, but I think that time can get away from us. We think that our guy's going to win game 7, but we have to think, what happens if he doesn't win game 7? You know, I think our plan can get blown up on a guy like Devin Booker, because we think he's going to win game 7. But when he doesn't win game 7, what are we doing? Now we have to rethink our plan. Now we're thinking, okay, I got to hold this guy. Am I going to hold him another year? Am I going to hold him to the next All-Star break? Am I going to hold him to the beginning of next NBA season? When am I going to sell him? Am I going to hold him forever? So what are your thoughts? I know this is me kind of word vomiting at you to start the show. But I think that's the kind of conversation I want to have around the NBA, and you can really apply it to any sport during sort of the playoff run, right?
Yeah, I think the longer that we've gone about this and done this together, I think about, okay, just so Giannis, we'll take Giannis for example. Last week we talked about best investment out there, basically we were just like, Giannis is the GOAT potentially, like if he materializes, blah, blah, blah. And then, the next week we've got him at 4 because of his playoff series loss. And so I'm just like, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I actually think that would now put him higher, because like for me, I'm looking at a dollar cost average, right? And so like when there's a massive hit in something that I'm potentially investing in long term, I'm thinking, okay, where is my dollar going to run the most? And so I think, okay, I'm going to put my, like, so for me, now I'm thinking Steph would be further down on my list right now because everyone is like Steph, like for instance, Luka. I would think like if I'm a guy who's trying to swing trade cards, if I put it that way, then I would say, okay, Tatum is a buy right now. Or not Tatum, sorry. Giannis is a buy right now, but a hold for Tatum and Luka and Steph. But I still think there's a lot of room in Tyler Hero's cards because so many people were so down on him for a long time. And before the season started, people were absolutely dogging on Tyler Hero. And now he's back into this spotlight, and the Heat have a legitimate chance to go to an NBA Finals. I don't think they'll get through the Celtics. I think the Celtics end up taking the East here. But I think for me personally, I think it ends up being Golden State versus the Celtics. And then I actually think Celtics will win that series as well. They're just too hot right now. I think the Bucks were my prediction to win. So if they beat the Bucks, in my mind, they can beat anybody. So, but in terms of long-term projections and in terms of when you're in a playoff series, I actually would just say you need to be preparing before that. You need to be preparing in the season or right before the playoffs start, or even actually before the season starts in the off season beforehand. So, now would be a great time to capitalize on some of those bets that we made early on in the season, capitalize on those Tatum cards and capitalize on potentially if you dip down in the Celtics far enough when you went like Jaylen Brown, or you went that kind of, if you invested in some of those marginal Celtics, you need to get out. I think that's my perspective in terms of an investor. You need to be selling right now. So if I was to just do Kendall's investment report, the guys that are being more successful, I actually would pull down on the list for a long-term buy. So they're kind of like in that long-term section, but in the short term, I would be buying the guys that just fell off and everyone's trying to dump. So that's my thought.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so I'm trying to add, we know that the sports card investment report is kind of built around rankings. And so what I want to try to do within the write-ups is add as much context as I can. And then that's one of the reasons why I've added the members only content, is because I want to add, kind of some sell now, buy now type of content related to the report. Because looking at the rankings, you don't always get that, like somebody who just comes to nooffseason.com and just peruses the rankings might think that I'm trying to tell them
the play would be the most important part of the article.
Yeah, the play is the most important part of every article. And so, some people might think I want them to buy Luka over Giannis, and that's not necessarily the case. I think where it relates on a day-by-day basis is maybe the people who play FanDuel and DraftKings, and they might want to place a bet on Luka or place a bet on Tatum because they're still in it. And so I kind of think of it that way too, where it's okay, well, putting together the fact that Luka and Tatum.
If you're going to take a bet right now, just take Al Horford rebounds. It's worked all season.
Yeah, that's a good bet. There's probably a lot of solid prop bets within each of these games that make a lot of sense. But I think marrying together the fact that you could say Tatum is pretty close to Giannis, or you could say Luka's pretty close to Giannis. He doesn't have the MVPs and he doesn't have the championship, which I guess is a contradictory statement. But you could say age-wise, you could say, things can materialize over the next couple years. So in theory, they're not that far apart. But yeah, for the record, I do want to say, I still moving Giannis down to number 4 momentarily basically just means that there is a chance that Tatum and Luka's cards, and even Steph, even Tyler Hero, even other guys on the Warriors or Mavs potentially will see a large. I'm listing a Draymond Green card. This is a good example. I'm going to list a Draymond Green card now because I'm looking at Draymond Green, and we talked about him maybe being a Hall of Famer. But
Yeah.
the dude's like never going to be in the spotlight more than he's going to be in the spotlight over the next like probably 10 to 15 days. He's just
Mm-hmm.
not. And so
Mm-hmm.
he's going to get more views on his YouTube channel. He's going to get like more
Mm-hmm.
interviews. He's going to get more features on Sports Center because of the series. And then if they make it to the finals, you know, it's going to be even crazier. So, but my thought is I'm going to be safe and list now, because if I don't list Draymond Green now, that card it's a rookie auto, and I don't know when the next time that thing could get as high as it would
Oh,
potentially
yeah,
get right now,
absolutely.
you know? So that's
The
kind
only
of
time
like,
that I
that's
could
the
think that it
example of
would
what I'm
get,
trying to say for all of these guys, you know?
yeah, the only time I think it could get a little bit larger than that is if the Warriors beat the Mavs and he's in the finals 15 days after this, you know, like, and so no matter what,
Right.
this next 15 to 30 day window is probably your gold prime time to get on this Draymond sell. So yeah, I think that's perfect
Yeah.
sell.
So I kind of want to know from people in the comments, or, you know, join the Facebook group by going to sportscardstrategy.com and click the link to join the Facebook group. I kind of want to know from everybody, like, what are you guys all doing related to what Kendall and I are talking about? Like, are you
Yeah.
like hoarding Tatum cards like for the long term? If so, why are you? You know, or are you like what's your strategy related to this? Like, are you on board? Because Kendall and I are in sync, to be clear. Like, we want to acquire guys that could have these playoff moments far ahead of time, and then we want to
Mm-hmm.
sell safely while they're having moments, not trying to wait for like the biggest moment. Because if you wait for the biggest moment, like we just saw with Booker, like that could be gone in an instant, or with
Yep.
Giannis, that could be
Yep.
gone in an instant. So I think that we need
Man,
to, and then also
Booker and Paul
secondly,
just crapped their pants.
yeah,
It
and
was
like,
so
and now
bad.
what do you even do with Chris Paul's like another topic. Like him and James Harden, I move them way down on the report just because I don't like. Now you could argue, okay, maybe you don't move them down on the report because maybe their prices plummet, and now you start to look at, do they come back and have more markers next year? Like I get that, but at the same time, it's like, what are the chances that either one of those two guys actually comes back and becomes like as relevant as they've been in the last few years? And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where the tie for me on, do I move them down? Do I move them up, like you're saying? Because there's an opportunity to buy.
Right. Do you
Do I
move them
keep them kind
up?
of in the
Because
middle, or do I move them
yeah.
down? The tiebreaker is like, what's the probability they're still going to be that good? You know? And like for a guy like
Right.
Giannis, I would never move him past 5th overall. And that should say right there, like that's like
That
he's the
should tell
guy,
you
right?
what he is. Yeah.
That should tell you he's the guy. And
Right.
so anyway, we can move on from this conversation, but
Well,
I think
okay.
it's a
Let
good
me ask you this. Let me ask
point.
you this. There's a guy that we haven't talked about in basketball right now that I think is an absolute buy right now,
Okay.
and it's LeBron James.
Yep.
I mean, his value, like people just are not thinking about him right now. They're like,
Yeah.
Lakers are a complete afterthought. I know we've talked about the Lakers several times. It's kind of like buying a Yankees card. They're always going to have value, you know, but LeBron James right now, like he's being seen like on beaches and on the sidelines. You know, his cards, I'm sure, are down. I mean, I didn't do any pre-work on this. It just kind of came to my mind. I don't know how far his cards are down, but if you're going to invest in a guy who's not in the limelight right now, LeBron might be a good
Yeah.
play
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
because
LeBron,
we know where his market's going to be eventually. Like he's going to go down as one of the best. He's probably going to get involved with some sort of ownership after he retires. You know, like you're going to see his son. Like if you're going to, if you have been sleeping on LeBron cards for the last, you know, whatever, 15 years, now might be a great time when his prices are a little bit low. Would be if the Lakers were in the playoffs right now and he was scoring 40, having 15 rebounds and 15 assists, his cards would be going nuts, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And we have seen a bit of a dip. Like our most recent pricing updates in the cards that we're tracking that we recommend our buys in the sports card investment report, they have gone down a little bit in May, even through May. And so I think like we are reaching the LeBron floor if we're not there already. And it's kind of like we never really know like what the floor is going to be until like after it's already past us. But I think you're right. I think it's a great buying opportunity for LeBron. He's number 31 overall on our list. And I think that there's some cards that, I said this on Hoops and Cards with Gary. He's a new friend of the show, and he joined me on the basketball card strategy show as well. Not Gary V, Gary U.
Gary U.
Close to V. The letters look the same, but Gary U.
So he's a more rounded. He's a more rounded Gary V.
He's a more well-rounded Gary. You could say that. That's very, very, very well done there, Kendall.
Sure, he would appreciate that.
I think 2003 Tops. I think 2003 Fleer. I think 2003 even like Bazooka has a card. I would just avoid Upper Deck. I think Upper Deck just has, unfortunately, too many rookie cards. And and so, but I think LeBron. I don't know. I'm not a guy that's gonna tell you to buy like later on in his career prisms and stuff like that. I'm not a guy that's gonna like tell you to buy the dunk card, like the Kobe tribute dunk. I don't know that those are investable cards. I think they're great for collectors, but I think that now's a great time if you want to drop some money on LeBron rookies. I totally agree, and that's why we've kept him in the top. Like I know 31 doesn't seem high for LeBron. There's a lot of guys that I've got Darius Garland and LaMelo Ball ahead of him.
Because of the opportunity to buy in lower.
Because of the opportunity to buy in lower, because they have more investable cards. I think we're looking at a little bit of a different generation where you've got, LeBron doesn't have many autos. LeBron, like to find a really investable LeBron card, you've got to go like try to find some kind of pop count. Versus like LaMelo has serial numbered on card auto stuff that's just like brilliant. Same thing. Garland is an Upper Deck exclusive, so he's a little bit weird to invest in too. But he's got he's a tricky one because of that. But I think like the younger guys have more investable cards, lower prices, and maybe just this like they're not going to be LeBron. Don't get me wrong, but they don't have to do the things that LeBron has to do to move his card prices. That's another factor. Like people will be like, why not LeBron? Point. Why not LeBron? I don't disagree, but I think LeBron has markers. LeBron has markers. You mentioned a bunch of them, and they're totally legitimate. But are those markers really big enough to move his card value more than like a few percentage points at a time over a long period of time? I don't know.
See,
if he wins another
championship,
absolutely.
But I don't see it as a swing play. I'm thinking like, I mean, if you've got, like if you're looking at it like a portfolio, we talk about goat stars and flyers, right? If you have an opportunity to buy low on a goat, go for it, and so it's like like snatch a LeBron you like, put it in a vault and let it grow 3 to 5% every year, and it, we've seen over LeBron's career, his haters are always just like a hater of success for the most part, or like a hater of the way he does things. We never see like he's not, he's not moral failing, like he's not.
There's no reason to hate LeBron other than
scandal, right?
Other than
there's
being
no sort
a hater.
Of LeBron, other than he's the best, and you just hate that. So
exactly. I agree with you. He's going to be relevant in culture. He's a good GOAT investment in your portfolio to not necessarily spike in value, but to be something that's not going to really, really dip that much either from where he is now. So I really like that play. Anything else on the NBA or NBA playoff takeaways before I switch gears here, man?
Well, so I don't see it on our rundown, and I think now might be a small time to just put it in here. But we're talking about game sevens. Man, hockey has been awesome in the past week. Like, I'm not super into the NHL. Obviously we had Paul on a couple weeks ago to talk about it, but I've been watching Connor McDavid and the Oilers, and on Saturday, Connor McDavid, like he won the game. Like, I was just like, this dude is so good. And Paul said, like, he might be in the best guy on ice since Gretzky. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, that's just clickbait, And then I watch him. I'm like, okay, wow, this guy's getting good, like, he's really good. So I was watching it last night. I am a fan of the Minnesota Wild, and we didn't end up making it out of our series. But Connor McDavid ends up getting they do the 3 stars at the end of the game. Connor McDavid got the 1-star spot because he put his team out. He scored some goals in big moments, and Connor McDavid's Oilers went past the Kings. And I think like we can't avoid, like, I know we have people that are wanting hockey conversation, and to be honest, like, I don't really think me and you are the guys that should be the best at that conversation, but I think it is worth me saying, like, this dude, when you look at him and when you watch him play, it's incredible.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I think, I want to do some more research into hockey and some into hockey cards over the hockey off season, because I think it's silly to not do that, because there's going to be so many more plays happening in hockey. But I mean, you could make an argument that Connor McDavid should be in our top 10, if not our top 5 on the Sports Card Investment Report. He's number 33 right now, and we've steadily moved him up. I think. That
if he is an active GOAT, then you would want to move him up. But I think that's something that me and you are learning, is to be like, we're always pushing into new areas of our hobby, and if we're doing that, then this is an area that I'm kind of trying to learn. I don't know a whole lot about hockey. There's been seasons in my life where I really liked it and dove into it. When I was in high school, I watched the Stars pretty much every game. And I was really excited about it. And then I just kind of fell off. And then now I'm watching the Wild every once in a while, but I'm not really that dedicated. And so anyway, I'm looking forward to the off season to be able to pick up some cards, some of those young gun cards at a little bit more of a decent discount. So.
Yeah, I think that's the play. I think, and it even says here, I'll just give you guys, like, for those of you that aren't premium subscribers, like, the play with McDavid is like, it literally says we're waiting for the offseason to buy more NHL cards. I mean, including McDavid, just because, and that probably is why he's in the 30s and not like in the top 10 right now, because it's just not the time to buy his cards. And so, but I mean, and then the other guy's Austin Matthews in Toronto. Unfortunately, he had the opposite result. I think he lost in a game 7 against Tampa Bay. And so, but Austin Matthews is another Paul Fisher guy. Thanks, Paul, for mentioning him. And Austin Matthews is, like, I believe, around the same age as McDavid. He's in the other conference. He scored 60 goals this year, which is ridiculous, and finished 6th in points.
That seems pretty good.
I think. Yeah, 60 goals, I think, was the first time since maybe 2017 that somebody's done that. And I know it hasn't been done very often. So it's definitely like a historic number. And Austin Matthews is kind of like the mini Connor McDavid, I guess. Maybe people in Toronto will be mad at me for saying that, but I think, like, he's somebody who is probably, you could probably start looking into his card prices and seeing if they've dipped since they lost. But I mean, those two guys, I think, are the guys that I'm going to be monitoring in the offseason, and then also trying to figure out, like, who's next. I know a lot of people are looking at Ovechkin. They're probably people looking at Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and everything in Pittsburgh, because they're still alive in the playoffs. But I think, like, I want to know who I want to know who the prospects are. I want to get into that, and I'd love anybody to make a comment on who they're following with hockey, because the more people that bring up hockey to us, the more we learn about it and the more content we put out about it, because it becomes top of our mind. Kendall and I are both the same. We're like, oh, someone tells us something, like, we'll admit we don't know that much about it, but we're going to go research the heck out of it and then come back with a take that, like, we think makes sense. So let us know what you think about hockey, for sure.
There's a guy, Kirill Kaprizov. He's a guy that's a young player on the Wild, but I just don't know. Like, I don't know enough about hockey to, like, really dive in. I know this guy's young. Mm-hmm. I know he was potentially one of the best in the world, but I don't know. We're not political on this show, but there are, like, these massive players in this sport that are Russian. It's like, how does that involve in an investment market? Like, how do we do that? Like, And so I'll just be honest. I don't know. I don't know where, what that looks like. And so I don't know if that potentially hinders his price value just because of the nation he's from. I hope it doesn't, unless he has some sort of tie with some administration or something. But, you're seeing that with like Chelsea and some other like sports clubs around the world that are engaging with that stuff. And I don't know. I think Kirill would be a cool one that I've been watching, but I'm kind of afraid to put some dollars there just because of the scene of the world. But I know we don't really want to get into that, but it's something that you got to talk about when you're talking about investing.
You got to look at it, because I'm glad you brought that up, and we won't need to talk about it too much, but it is a good point, because there's so many different places to put your money within sports cards. It's like there's like, other things you can do.
Risk?
And so if you buy someone and you don't really fully understand the ramifications of why the market may not want them, that's just one really good example by you of like why the market might not want them. And it almost doesn't matter what people's political beliefs are. It's like, if people aren't buying their card for whatever reason, then you probably shouldn't buy their card as an investment, I saw it happen in Formula One. When I started getting into F1 earlier this year, I was looking for sleepers, and I was like, and there's a lot of really, really investable F1 cards that are just like autographed, or, Topps Dynasty is something that I'm like super intrigued by. I'll talk more about that. I actually wrote a lot about that on the members only content that I was talking about at nooffseason.com. But anyway, there's a Russian F1 driver from last year who's been kicked out of F1. And so, his really, really nice cards are they're just not selling. They're selling, but they're selling for like pennies, or just dollars, and like every other F1 card is like hundreds of dollars. So it's a generalization there, and people are probably going to be screaming into their headphones at like the details of what I'm talking about, but I don't really want to get into the details. I'm just giving you the generalization that Kendall's making a really good point here. So
even just larger, there are, to be a sports card investor, you have to know the market cycles, and like you can't just be watching the game. You can't just be watching the games anymore. You can't, because our media is so all inclusive. Like you've got to know some of the markers around these players that are, it goes back to the LeBron thing. Like for instance, for me, I think LeBron is a really good investment because it's on the Magic Johnson thing. Like, when LeBron gets out of the league, he's going to be doing stuff all over business. Like, this dude is just already a businessman, and so like when you look at the profile of how is he going to continue to be in the media over and over and over, and how is that going to continue to be a reminder? Like, that's a positive. But then at the other side, you have to think of the negatives. Like, you have to think of the people that adversely are going to affect their pricing because of the all-encompassing media that we have in this day and age. So I didn't want to bring up politics, but at the same time, it's like sometimes you've just got to know this card is going to have some sort of a marker on it just because of who he is. So I don't know if like I know nothing about him. I'm just saying, like, that might be a caution to be like, should I invest in him, or should I go a little bit higher and invest in Connor McDavid in the offseason? Like, which one is going to have less barriers to entry? Obviously it's a much different price point. I think a PSA 10 Young Guns of Kirill is like $700. I think a PSA 10 of Connor McDavid is like several $1,000s. So it's much different of a price point. But anyway, so that's my small little hockey talk.
For sure. That's what the investment report's all about. Like, I know I keep saying it, but it's all about, like, if you're going to get in on McDavid, like, you're probably looking at 5 figures, and so you better,
it's not
better
a cheap
hope
buy.
that, you better hope that he's going to go up. Like, it's not the lesson I learned the hard way, becoming a sports card investor is like, just because a card's hot today doesn't mean it literally might be like down 20% the next day. So you've got to, it is about the market cycles and learning when to, just because something's rising doesn't mean it's going to rise for a long time. So actually timing the market is the next thing I want to talk about. And I have a specific example. So I like to have specific examples to where we don't get too abstract with our discussions. And I thought that this would be a good way to do it. So Kendall, can you see this Lamar Jackson 2018 Kaboom on your screen? In our Facebook group, again, go to sportscardstrategy.com and click the link to join the Facebook group if you want to do that. We'd love you to. But in our Facebook group, there's been some DMs, and I'm not going to reveal the person, but I thought this was an amazing example to call out as content, because I think we all need to be thinking this way. But there are two people that I know that are trying to make a deal with each other. I don't think the deal's going to happen. And the reason why is because one of them owns this 2018 Panini Rewards Kaboom Lamar Jackson rookie, which is an amazing card to own right now, I believe, because he's in our top 20. And I think Lamar is going to have a season full of markers that are going to drive his value up steadily throughout the year. And then I don't know what the Ravens are going to do in the playoffs, but I think they're going to make the playoffs, and I think that Lamar is going to be competitive. So as long as he stays healthy, like, there's absolutely no reason why Lamar Jackson's cards won't really increase in value in the 2022 NFL season. So I think this is an amazing type of card. Like, if I could own any card right now and hold it till at least September and see what happens in September with the hype around the NFL season, and then maybe sell it, like, this would be the card. And then if, like, I'm kind of like I'd be week by week, like, maybe looking to sell this card during the NFL season. Anyway, the last sale of this card raw was back in January of 2022, and it went for $850. Now, the seller, for all of their personal reasons, which I think, unfortunately, like, personal reasons come into this more often than they should. And I don't want to criticize that because everyone's situation is different, but I think we do need to think about this, like, a little bit unemotionally as investors and say, like, even though I might need the money now, if I can figure out a way to wait until the better time to sell this card, I can monetize it more. So that basically what's happening is the seller wants $1,200 for this card raw. Now, the last time it sold for anywhere close to $1,200 was, like I said, last September at the beginning of the NFL season, literally September 8th, 2021, it sold for basically just under $1,200. So the buyer only wants to pay $800 for it. So there's a huge discrepancy. There's a $400 discrepancy between the buyer and the seller. The seller asked me, DM me, and said, what should I do? And I literally came back and I said, wait until September, because you are holding an amazing card. If you can at all wait until September, you can get your $1,200 for this card. And so, I don't know what the seller's going to do.
Maybe more, but actually.
Maybe more. And then the other thing I said is, if you can pay PSA $60, or if you can pay Wild Cards box breaks $60 to submit it, hit Kendall up at Wild Cards, at Wild Cards Trading on Twitter. And I think that's the handle on Instagram too. But he and T can submit it for you for $60. But, like, look at this. I mean, it sold on April 20th, last month, less than a month ago, for $4,000 in a PSA 10. And that's kind of the whole debate, right? Is, like, the condition of the card. I mean, it sold for $1,225 in a PSA 9. So if you're holding a Kaboom, and like 2 days ago, so, like, if you're holding a Lamar Jackson Kaboom and you think it's a 10, which means at worst it should be a 9, and you can't get the $1,200 that you need right now, you can only get $800. Pay $60, get it graded, and then you can
$60
easily get your $1,200 now. Pay $60, get $1,200, and I just think, or even better yet, do both. Have it graded now, and then wait until September or October. That's the play. That's the play, and that's the thing I wanted to bring up about
Lamar's division is
like, it's stacked.
Lamar's division is going to be insane. They're going to be all over national TV. I mean, you've got the Browns doing crazy stuff you've got the Bengals doing Joe Burrow stuff, Joey Ice going on. You've got Lamar Jackson, who's kind of an afterthought right now, who has the ability to explode and be an MVP, and then you have Kenny Pickett's going on, and like that's going to be marketed.
Yeah.
Like people want to know what this kid from Pittsburgh is going to do when he's in the Pittsburgh, like, you know, Golden Dome or Golden Crown. Well, I don't know what they call it. I'm not a Steelers fan, but
Yeah.
but you know, I think this division is one of the ones to watch next year. It's kind of got the most up in the air action going on, and so anyway, I think Lamar is going to benefit from that. You know, and I think more than LeBron. I think more than Lamar will benefit from that. I'm back on LeBron. No, I'm just kidding. And so, but
we
Lamar
get it. We get
will.
it. We know you like LeBron as an investment.
We get invest. No, and so, but Lamar is a guy that I think is a huge buy right now, because obviously the one thing that you're worried about is injuries. You're not worried about if he's good. You're not worried about if the Ravens are okay. You know, like the Ravens are good. He's incredible. Can he stay healthy?
Yeah, that's a big thing. And that's kind of why I'm mentioning September, because I think what's going to happen is like the dude's going to light up the stat column in September. And like, he's going to be the number 1 fantasy QB after 4 weeks. He's going to be he's going to be all over Sports Center. And the Ravens are going to be 4-0, and you sell the dude, or 1-0, whatever. Yeah. And you sell the dude, and you cash out on Lamar. But I think that's why Lamar is in our top 20 right now for that reason, because he's low. You buy him now, and he's a flip in September. People, like, he's not a long-term investment. I'm not pretending he's the Giannis of the NFL. That doesn't exist. Like, they're different. And so they're on the investment report for different reasons. And I'm thankful to the questions from the Facebook group, because I think that this was it's hard to talk about like arbitrarily timing the market, but when somebody gives you like a perfect example of what you're trying to articulate, like this was it for me. It was like, we have to talk about this on the show, because we're literally like, if you can wait 4 months, you already have the card. Like I'm going to the National, and like, I know that like, if I could buy this card for $850 or $900 at the National in condition that I think could get a 9 or a 10, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to have it graded, and I'm going to sell it in September. Like more clear than any other play I could possibly make. And so if you're listening, the person who owns this card, I beg of you to do that. And I think you will be thanking me in September if you can afford it in your life right now. So that's my take on that.
I like it. I like the take. I think
all right, let's switch.
I think he's going to be worth more than $1,200 in September. So,
cool. Let's switch gears, because we're about to get into your favorite sport. And I know soccer's a close second, but we're about to talk about baseball. So we didn't talk about baseball that much on the last show, and we're getting and my fear is that if we don't take advantage of Kendall Lefty McKee, the catalytic Kendall McKee on the show right now in May, that we're gonna like miss all of the baseball opportunities. And I know we're like, to us, we're late, but I think to everyone else, there's still a lot of plays to be made. And in fairness, like, people have lives outside of sports cards, and so they're probably like, "Oh, baseball just started.
They do?
Like, what are you guys talking about?"
I don't.
There's still a lot of. I don't either. So, but I mean, some listeners may, and so they might be saying what baseball plays can be made. And so, before we get your take on what baseball plays can be made, and I'll ask you some specific questions, I want to start with a super specific one, because as I'm doing my research, I research a lot of different areas, and I noticed I have my process, and part of my process is to look at who's performing the best in all of the different professional sports leagues. And I noticed Aaron Judge was a name that stuck out to me as a guy who happens to be pretty much on fire right now. And so I started going through his cards, and a lot of his more expensive cards come from his 2017 rookie season, but Bowman is the set now, And I noticed, I remembered you mentioned a couple episodes ago that Bowman before like 2017 wasn't necessarily the set. And I think we're seeing an example of this with Aaron Judge because his 2013 Bowman draft PSA 10 is up 25% over the last 30 days, according to Market Movers, but it's still only a $175 card. Can you tell me two things? Number one, why are his Topps 2017 cards in some cases far more expensive than his 2013 Bowman Chrome? Mm-hmm. And number two, do you think a card like this or this specific card provides an opportunity for someone to go buy it and then the market coming around and saying, wait a minute, like this is all Bowman now with prospects. What about these guys that are like MVP candidate veterans? Should we not be going back and buying their Bowman Chrome draft pick card? Am I missing something with this? What's your take on this?
No, I think this kind of falls into that same line of what I'm talking about. How like there's like this small, well, it's not small, it's kind of a big caveat in baseball collecting where you've got these two marketplaces essentially. Well, you've got the things that you've got these prospectors, and then you've got the people that are just marginal fans that are watching whatever they're presented with on TV. And typically the TV people are going to be investing in Topps and Topps autos, and then the prospectors are going to be diving into Bowman. But like I said, like you said, that 2015 to 2017 era is when Bowman first autos started getting insane amount of attention and revenue that pouring in. Before that, you see guys like Byron Buxton, you see guys like Aaron Judge, you see guys like Carlos Correa. Their cards are in those earlier Bowman sets, and they're just simply not going for as much money as they could be. And so in your question of like, is this a potential buy in terms of a long-term hold for the market to correct itself? I would want to say yes. I would want to say and if I back up a little bit, I would want to say that the Bowmans in that era potentially will get caught up with. I don't think they'll be the same level because they're not as visually appealing as some of the newer Bowman products. And I think that has a lot to do with it. But I also will say that Bowman aside, Aaron Judge is an MVP this year. I'm just going to go ahead and say he's going to probably be in the top 3 to 5 at the end, if not the winner. And that's going to be really hard considering Trout is coming off of an injury season and doing what he's doing. But you have a potential contract situation looming with Aaron Judge. He's going to eventually hit free agency this offseason because the Yankees can't figure out what they're doing with his contract. He's on the best team in baseball right now, which is the Yankees. They're killing everything. You know, he's in a best place for his cards to make an insane run right now. And so if I'm looking at it as an investor and I'm thinking, okay, I have $200 to $400 right now, I'm going to still buy his PSA 10 Bowman Chrome. You know, I'm still going to do that because it's going to have a nice run next 5 to 6 months. What's the pop report? Are you looking that up right now? So it's 11,000 or 1,105.
It's 1105.
You know, that's it's not incredible, you know. But at the same time, like for a card value that's potentially between $135 and $200, you're going to get a guy that's going to have an insane run this season. And then if he wins an MVP and he goes into a contract year, and he goes in the offseason and there's like this giant, Aaron Judge, where's he going? You know, he's traveling and he's in LA and he's in, Miami and he's in Texas and he's in, then I don't even think he has an off-season lull. I think he goes into an off-season spike, and so sometimes in baseball I've found that people are so bought into what happens in 3 months. It's different than a lot of other sports cards I've seen because baseball fans and baseball prospectors are so good at having patience that their guy is going to make it. I see them making longer term plays more often. And so I think when you see a guy like Judge coming up, and you see all that coming up, you could see somebody paying big money in September or October and waiting for April to come around when he starts with his new team. I don't know. So anyway, all I'd say right now, I think you should buy that Judge card, but I'm not sure that it ends up going to where a normal Bowman Chrome would. Plus, this isn't an auto. I would say that's a really big hit on it. This is just a regular Bowman Chrome PSA 10, which just a regular Bowman Chrome PSA 10. But I would say that Aaron Judge is somebody that is definitely worth looking at. It's not often that you're seeing a guy in an MVP conversation, and I would not consider him an overvalued purchase right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would say Aaron Judge is not an overvalued purchase right now, and he's on an MVP run. Those are two incredible things that you can put together.
Yeah, you articulated what was in my brain when I kind of found this and put it on our agenda for the show. And I never know if you're going to slaughter my suggestion or if you're going to agree with me and kind of elaborate on it. Yeah, actually, you never slaughter my suggestion, but I could tell when you politely disagree with me. And so, yeah, I'm super interested in this card now that you kind of agree with me, because I do think a couple thoughts I'll just add to yours. Yeah, if you were to put us 20 years from today and say all of the Bowman Chromes from the 2010 through the 2025 era, even though they have different designs, we might group them all that way. 20, 30 years from now, we might group all of them that way. And so who's going to be better? Spencer Torkelson or Aaron Judge? I mean, we don't know. But
so while you're on the computer,
pretty sure
look up a Spencer Torkelson PSA 10 Chrome and what the pop count is, because I'm sure it's probably around 10,000.
This is why I have eBay ready to go. Let's look at the price, and then we'll look at here's first Bowman Chrome PSA 10, which is essentially what we're talking about.
It's the same card.
Recent sale. Let's do recent sales real quick. You guys can kind of see a little bit of the process. It might not be different from your process, but if it is, you'll learn a little something. So, okay. So $86 for a Spencer Torkelson. That's obviously $100 less than the Judge card that we're talking about. So we got to take that into consideration. But if we do a pop count on
obviously
that,
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this.
Now
I haven't done this, but I think this pop account is going to be insanely higher.
Yeah, I like to use psa.com/cert and then I like to take a certification number and put it in, and it just gives me a better look at the pop count. So this is just someone's card, but it's going to bring up the entire pop count. 613-64123. So Judge was 1105 and Torkelson same card. 658. Wow, that just slapped us in the face. How is that possible?
Okay.
How is that possible? We just got B-smacked on that.
Yeah, we just got
live.
smacked.
Hey, sometimes it happens.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
Okay, so the point we're trying to make is that now this could, in fairness to us, this could have to do with the PSA shutdown and the amount of cards that are coming back from
also,
PSA.
2020's quality control wasn't great, but I'm trying to make it look like I know what I'm doing, even though I just publicly defrauded an idea I had.
It's a good idea, because I think the point is that take any prospect from today. People I say Torkelson because, he's batting under 200 in his first 200 MLB at bats, give or take. And so, and then you've got Judge, who's far more accomplished and plays in a better franchise, unfortunately. Say what you want about the Yankees. They're winning, and the Tigers.
Go Tigers.
So if you go Tigers. If you extrapolate that over a career, and then say 20, 30 years from now, look back at this similar era of Bowman Chrome PSA 10s and say pop count's pretty similar. Who do we want, Aaron Judge or Spencer Torkelson? My money right now money's on Aaron Judge. My heart is with Torkelson, but my money is with Judge. That's That's the punchline. So
That's funny.
But speaking of Judge, I want to talk with you about, and this goes along with what I was talking about, people getting interested in baseball cards in May probably hit that second demographic of baseball card investors. You usually talk about two different demographics, two different markets. It's been your phrase where you say one market is the prospect market. They're in it year round, and they're getting Bowman draft right when it comes out, and they're buying singles, and they're buying hangers and hobby boxes and everything, and they're prospecting. And then you've got the other market, which is more of like the seasonal, I would say, baseball card investor that's more interested in sort of the Vlad Juniors and Shohei Ohtani's of the world, right? And so baseball card rankings at nooffseason.com, basically our top 7 are all major leaguers, right? And so they're not prospects. They're well-established major leaguers. So I want to shift the discussion a little bit to well-established major leaguers that you believe are buys right now for this season, right? Like you talked about Lou Bob earlier. I'm wondering if you still feel the same way about him. We've all liked Vlad. I'm wondering if you still feel the same way about him. Give us kind of your overall update on the veteran, if you will, or established major leaguer market, the non-prospect market. Who should people maybe be looking for? As you scroll deeper into our baseball card rankings, you get hit with mostly prospects. But who are some guys that you'd like to maybe call out as, like, we talked about Judge. It sounds like he's one. Anyone else fall into that category?
So what do you mean is established? Do you mean that they've played at least one game?
Well,
or do you mean like they've been at least one season?
Let's just say non-prospects. So
okay.
The definition of the definition of a prospect, I think, is that they've played over 100 games or something like that. So you can you can clarify that, and then let's just say non-prospects.
Okay. In baseball, the prospect tag or the rookie tag is tagged after a certain amount of pitches or a certain amount of game appearances or plate appearances, depending on if you're a pitcher or a hitter. So my answer was going to be, I don't know if you count Julio Rodriguez as established major leaguer because he's been in the league for a month, but he is turning things around. Like he was bad in the beginning of the season, and now he is doing things that I'm like, this guy might be better than Franco. Which is crazy to say. Like, I think Julio and Franco are going to be the next wave of stars that take this league and go into a new place, you know. And so I would say J-Rod is, I mean, just watching him, I'm just like, yes, this guy is what he was prescribed to be. And I said at the first month or the first 2 weeks, I was like, this guy dipped, and he was down like, I think 22% on some of his cards, and I was like, you need to buy this. And now his cards are back, you know, even higher. So I looked up last night actually, a Bowman Chrome auto of Wander Franco is $2,000 PSA 10. Base auto PSA 10 Wander Franco $2,000. And my buddy asked me, how much less is Julio Rodriguez's PSA 10? And I said, I don't know, probably a little bit, you know, like it's definitely good to compare these. I look at them, it's $120 on average higher than Franco's right now. And so I'm like, okay, all right, J-Rod is definitely, his market is definitely taking off. But so I think I would say J-Rod, but if I'm going to go deeper into like I guess a more established player, there's guys I really do like Lou Bob. I think the White Sox are quietly building something pretty impressive. I really like Vladimir Guerrero. I think Junior is going to be able to do stuff that he's going to have the longest career, I think, out of all these guys, because he's going to end up being like a McKee Cabrera, or not McKee Cabrera, different player. He's going to be like Cabrera, the Tigers Cabrera, and he's going to have the longer career in terms of he's going to be able to hit 3,000. He's going to play when he's looking like Pujols, when he's out there and he looks like the Michelin Man. You're going to see him playing forever and ever, and I think his career is going to last longer. So I would say Guerrero is still a huge buy for me, especially, you know, when you've got his – look at that PSA Chrome Auto right there. It's a $5,000. I mean, that's $3,000 higher than Julio Rodriguez, which is insane. But personally, in that field right there, just in those two guys, I would buy Julio because I think Julio has the run to be able to be a $5,000 card. But I still think that Julio or Vladdy is a great play. But I want to talk about a guy when you're asking me this question that you asked me about, and I dogged. I was like, you need to get out of this guy.
I think I know who it is.
And he's on the list, actually, but
guess?
he's way far down. Go ahead. You can
I guess who it is?
Yeah.
It's Jazzrado Chisholm Jr.
It is Jazz Chisholm, yes. So I was so down on him this I was like, Jazz is just a flair guy. They're looking for a flash in the pan, you know, like Miami's falling apart, you know, like this narrative I could build up. I was like, this guy is not what he is. And Jazz just continues to prove people wrong. Like he's a guy that he loves being the villain almost in this. Like the owner doesn't necessarily like love him, you know, like to platoon him or something, you know, like, and he's just Jazz. He's going to get in there and he's going to like, you know, like the media loves him. The team loves him. People in the stands are all dyeing their hair blue because they're Jazz fans. And I'm like, okay, all right. I get it. Maybe Jazz is a guy. Maybe he is, you know. I don't love investing in second base potential backup shortstop, you know, like depending on how you want to look at that. I'm sure that somebody's going to kill me in the comments, but I think defensively he doesn't stay there, but he's just a guy that I think that baseball needs. Like baseball is always talking about not having enough fun in the game and how, you know, like for instance, their superstars, Mike Trout and Aaron Judge, are actually media wise really boring. Like I think the MLB just wants those two guys like, please do something awesome. And Trout's just like, I'll tweet or I'll put an Instagram post out like once every year. And Judge is like, I just look huge and I got new teeth. You know, like, I mean, it's just they don't have like a whole lot of media personality. But like Jazz has too much media personality. You know, like it's just like he is all out, like he is in control of his game. He's got a market, like he's got deals with companies that are going to come up and rise. Like he's doing things that almost like he's elevating companies, which I think is a really cool thing. Like he's standing behind other small companies in the area and rising them up into Major League Apparel and Major League like gloves and batting gloves and different types of wood bats and stuff. Like he's doing stuff that's just different. And I think that is going to not only be a huge part of his market, but he's playing like a guy who has a big market. So
nice. Yeah, it's good to see. It's good to see players, you know, pan out. I think part of me sort of roots for everybody, and you know, I like that Jazz has hit well so far this season, and I hope it continues because I think it's probably a big part of like his success is that he's got to hit well, right? I mean, all these guys pretty much have to hit well to have any kind of hobby value. So, all right, cool. Anyone else? Any other veterans you want to call out as like sort of goodbye?
You won that round.
I'll take it.
Paul Hickey. I still think I'm going to still hammer the fact that Mike Trout is undervalued. You know, like that's kind of a LeBron situation for me right now. I'm going to continue to say it because I think he's undervalued. I just bought a Bowman Chrome of his for $400 a couple of weeks ago, and that card right there actually. The Bowman Chrome base PSA 10. That's the card I bought. I bought it for $400 before the season started, and I sent it to PSA. So we'll see, you know, what that looks like. But I think like Mike Trout is super undervalued right now. I think he's a guy that needs to be purchased. He's a guy that's going to end up going down as like as one of those top echelon players, and I think his legacy is going to get bigger when he's not playing, because people are going to do the whole baseball thing where they build him up larger than he actually was, and that's going to be impressive considering he is worthy of being talked about like that. So I think, like as soon as he gets off the field, people are going to say, oh yeah, I got to watch Mike Trout and blah, blah, blah. And I still think we're pretty far away from Mike Trout leaving the field. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah. He's only 30. So if he stays in good shape,
yeah, I mean, he can
and
have
I mean, that is a
though.
plus. Yeah. And that is a plus side potentially to him. Not being a media personality is that, his focus and drive is on playing baseball, I would assume. And so maybe that does help him play longer, and winning doesn't seem to matter as much in long-term card value when you have the stats and physical abilities of Trout. So yeah, I think, I'm going to be,
I think they have a chance this year. They have a chance.
Yeah, they do. They've got a lot of talent. I mean, they've got a lot of talent, and I mean, if they can make a run, all of those guys' prices are going to explode for sure. With Ohtani being next on that list for sure. So,
and Brandon Marsh
he's just
is
a
probably
train.
third on that list. Brandon Marsh, a guy to look out for.
There we go. Another name. That's what we need from Kendall, Lefty McKee. Host of the Baseball Card Strategy Show on the Sports Card Strategy feed. So check that out. That's actually where you made the call on Julio Rodriguez. Was on the Baseball Card Strategy Show. I think episode 2, if I remember correctly. So, very, very good. I think like this will be a topic of discussion later on in the summer, because similar to how we talked about the NBA playoffs at the top of the show, I think that a lot of other content creators are going to be like, they're just kind of talking about what's happening in the moment, whereas we're trying to talk about months before something happens, what to do so that you can be well prepared for that moment and ready to sell. But I think we do need to address the fact that, like, yes, as we get towards the MLB playoffs, there will still be plays. And so we'll probably continue to have the discussion around what those plays will be. But to me, there's more obvious plays. And so I want to segue to what I think is probably going to be our last topic of today, because I don't have a gauntlet prepared, unfortunately. And that might be for the best since you're on the road, and we won't keep you too long today. But our last topic of the day is also a baseball topic. And I think, to me, I wanted to bring this up because I think it might be one of the more obvious plays to say, all right, we talked about these prospects in the offseason. They were hyped up a lot. The list of guys who didn't get the call up coming out of spring training is now the list that becomes buy them if you don't already have them, and then sell them immediately when the news happens that they've been called up. Because that's when you get a spike. And like, why even mess around with how they're going to perform? Don't let them pull a Kalenic on you. Sorry, but don't let them do that. Just sell them when they're called up. So I have a list of guys in my members only article that went out today, very similar to your list that you're going to run us through. Who are the guys that are going to get called up this season for sure? And should we buy them all now if we don't have them and then sell them when they get called up? Or are there ones to maybe not buy if you don't have? And then, I guess, who are also the guys that if you have them that you hold to see how good they're actually going to be before you sell them?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna do like a red, yellow, green type thing with these guys. And do you want to mention your guys first?
To me, Riley Green.
Or do you want to save that as content?
I'm gonna be Captain Obvious. Riley Green, O'Neal Cruz, Brennan Davis were guys to me that, and then I did have 2 other guys, but I know that they're on your list, and so I'll let you reveal your list.
Okay. So I'm going to start with my Reds. I'm going to say, like, these are guys that are, You need, if you're going to invest in them at all, it would be a quick flip. Not because I don't think they'll be great, but just because they're probably going to have a lull as soon as they get into the major leagues. And those two are going to be Nolan Gorman and Gabriel Moreno. I think these two guys are top 100 prospects. They're going to be impactful for their major league teams. The problem with Grayson Rodriguez is he's a pitcher. So I don't love to invest in pitchers. I think they've got to be very special. For instance, Joe Ryan is one of the guys that I'm like, he is very, very special. And I do have PSA slabs of Joe Ryan, which I don't do that often. Grayson Rodriguez is another one of those guys. I think he's going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball, but I think it's going to take a little bit to get there. I think Grayson Rodriguez is a buy, and so when you can flip him, he's pretty cheap because he is a pitcher. So objectively, he is cheaper, but you could flip him when he gets called up because I think he gets called up very soon. Nolan Gorman is another one of those guys. He's a guy that's fallen through a lot of cracks, and he's going into the St. Louis system that needs an injection. If you read like any sort of article out there that's like some like MLB always produces this article that's like guys that could be impactful mid-season call-ups, like or something like that. Anytime you see a Cardinals no matter what article it is, typically you see a Cardinals spot, it's Nolan Gorman that they're putting there. And I think that also plays into the system that the Cardinals have. There's not a whole lot going on. But I also think Nolan Gorman is going to be a decent major leaguer. I think his floor is high and I think his ceiling is low. I'll just put it that way. That's so I'm going to say he's going to be a guy that's going to be a pretty average major leaguer, I think, above average even maybe. But you're going to want to get in on that hype, The yellows, I'm going to say Adley Rutschman. He is a guy that's going to come up. He's a catcher. He's in that Orioles system as well. The Orioles are going to continue to bring up guys for the next couple of years, and they're going to be studs. But I would say a yellow for Rutschman is like you could hold because I think he could be a long-term value. But I think in the short term, you're going to get a really nice run and play because the Orioles are really looking forward to having Rutschman on the team. He's going to be media hyped like crazy because of who he is and where he was drafted, especially when they're comparing him against some of the same guys in his sphere of like profiled players. They compare him often to Torque. They compare him often to a lot of guys in that same power profile of big, tall, strong major leaguers, first base catcher types. Like you think about guys like Freddie Freeman type profiles or like not in terms of their like how they play the game, but how in the way that their body makes up. They're big, strong guys that are just like almost country strong looking. I think Adley Rutschman is one of those guys. I think he's a yellow on my list. I'm also going to put Gabriel Moreno as a yellow right now because I think and I'm going to throw Brennan Davis in there too, and I'll tell you why. And these are guys that I think they're going to be able to come into the major leagues. They're going to potentially have impact in a lot of ways. They're going to have media eyes all over them. But there is small caveats to why they're not going to be super valuable long term. Gabriel Moreno, he's a catcher, could end up being a long term DH. He's going to be great in that system where he's coming up in the Blue Jays system. He's going to be great. He's a Met. But Gabriel Moreno is going to be a guy who's going to be really foundational for his club coming forward, and he's coming into a spot that's going to be a really good piece for that franchise. But he's also a catcher, and he also is that's typically just really hard on the body. So it's like, can he keep it up? Brennan Davis, I think he's a guy that 2 years ago I was just like mega, mega high on buying Brennan Davis all over the place. It was one of the guys that at Just Baseball we dove super deep on, and we just were like buying up everything when nobody knew who he was. And now like we're kind of swinging into that profit, which is really nice because Brennan Davis is going to come up for the Cubs where they have a lot of question marks still. They might end up moving Ian Happ. I think it makes sense to move Ian Happ to a team like the Padres. And that is going to give a guy like like Brennan Davis an ability to come into Chicago, be in the Windy City, be in the best ballpark in baseball. And sorry, Red Sox fans, that's Wrigley is just objectively better in my mind. He's going to be at a spot where he can thrive. But Brennan Davis is going to struggle out of the gate. I'm just going to say that because I think he's got some things in his swing it's complicated. He's not a guy that's just going to come up and immediately be like a Juan Soto. Like he's a guy that's going to come up and be a little more like a comp that we have at Just Baseball is like Matt Kemp. He's going to be a guy that's a little bit of a swing and a miss probably, but very fast. And I think it takes him a little bit to get to the Brennan Davis so I think he's a buy right now and a sell as soon as he gets up. He could be great, but I think it's a yellow for me. Now, the absolute green lights of guys you should buy right now and hold through that initial call up. Tristan Casas, love that guy. I think he is going to be incredible. Like he's going to be so good. And there's an immediate position availability for him too, because there's guys in the Boston system that have just underperformed at the major league level, especially at the first base. Like they're last place in their division. They shouldn't be there, to be honest. And I went to the game last night and I watched Boston play and it just wasn't good. It just wasn't. It's just the Rangers beat them 7-1, I think. And now I'll give them this. They beat them and they took the series 2 games out of 3. So I saw one of the 3 games, but they're struggling right now. They're last in the division. And I think Tristan Casas is going to come in and have plenty of run. I think he's a guy that's going to do really well in that slot in Boston. And I think he's a guy that's going to be, I've said it over and over and over. We got Freddie Freeman light right here. Like that is who he is. Another green light, O'Neal Cruz. We've talked about him a million times. His exit velocities are insane. He's actually, objectively, his value is low right now. So you could technically go and get some O'Neal Cruz again. And then Riley Green is that same way. He's a guy that's going to be so earlier on in the season, people ask me, you've got Torque or Riley Green, which one do you invest in? And I liked Riley Green better because of his athleticism and because of the ability that he has to be more than just a hitter, like more than just a power hitter. He has the ability to run. He has the ability to catch. He has the ability to kind of be a guy that's going to be just something to spectate. I saw Adolis Garcia last night. And he's the center fielder for the Rangers. He made his all-star team debut last year. And people thought he was going to fall off big time. Even me. I even said it on some podcasts that I thought he was going to fall off. And I watched him last night hit 2 home runs and then rob a home run and then throw an absolute strike from center field back into play. And I was like, wow, this guy is just so good. Just watching him play, he has a blast. Like he's out there just playing the game of baseball and he's loving it. And I think that's a guy we're going to see in Riley Green. And so I think that's also going to be the player that Riley Green is. Less power than Adolis, I'll say that, and less arm strength than Adolis, I'll also say that. But at the same time, you're going to see a guy that's going to be all over the field. And that's what I mean when I'm comparing those 2 players. You're going to see a guy that hits. You're going to see a guy that runs. You're going to see a guy that catches and throws and lays his body out on the line. And Tigers fans you're going to see green jerseys all over Detroit. Comerica is going to be filled with green jerseys.
Yeah, I love it. Few comments on your takes there. Tigers fans are already they've already for the last couple of years been saying, when people say, "Are you excited about Torque?" The true Tigers fan says, "Yeah, but we're more excited about Riley Green." And then people will be like, "Well, who's Riley Green?" And well, he was the 5th overall pick the year before Torque, so he's pretty darn good. And the word on the street, from everybody who knows that organization is that just his hitting capabilities are sort of he's sort of like a hitting prodigy, if you will. And so that'll be interesting to see when he gets some major league at bats for real. I had Casas on my list because of you, so I'm excited about him. The research I've done on him since you mentioned him on the Sports Card Strategy show several weeks ago, it just lines up with who you say he is, and so I've become big on him. there's a few guys that you had mentioned to me that you didn't mention just now. And
Okay.
so I'm wondering if maybe, and there's actually one of them that you've never mentioned on the show. And I'm getting my information from, excuse me. I'm getting my information partially from you, but also partially from Just Baseball and MLB.com's projections of when these guys are supposed to be in the big leagues. And so I've
Okay.
taken like guys that say they're supposed to be up in 2022. So one of them is CJ Abrams in San Diego. Another one is Nick Gonzalez, who I know you like. And another one is Josh Lowe, who I don't know if you've mentioned him before, but he seems to be on a list that says he's supposed to be up in 2022. Did I say Alec Thomas? Alec Thomas is the fourth one.
Yeah, I can brief. There's a reason actually all four of those did not make this list today. So CJ Abrams, Josh Lowe, and Alec Thomas have been called up already. Okay. I was putting that list together of like potential call-ups that haven't been called up yet. Alec Thomas, guy I'm really big on. I think he's a high floor guy. He came into the major leagues and hit a home run in his first game. I think might have been his first pitch, to be honest. Like he's an electric player. He's in an Arizona system that's going to give him tons of run. I think him and Jordan Lawler are going to take that franchise and really run with it. They've also got guys like they've got Varsho out in center field, who's like a catcher convert that's now playing center field, which is stupid to even think about. But there's like 4 other guys coming up in the minor leagues that are catchers / center fielders, which who would we ever have thought that would be the case when you see a guy like Benji Molina making it in the major leagues. But and so I'm big on Alec Thomas. I just didn't bring him up in this situation because I think his floor or his ceiling is a little bit lower. He's a guy that's a high floor, low ceiling, not a low ceiling, but like not an upper echelon of players, you know. But I think he is a good like guy that you could have made some run on before he made the major leagues. Now that he's in there and everyone knows him and seeing him, I think that's your opportunity is a little behind on Alec Thomas. CJ Abrams also got called up earlier this year and has played incredibly well. And he's a guy that San Diego is going to love. Like Fernando Tatis, yes, he's incredible. Is he going to stay at shortstop? I don't know. I've talked about his injury history a lot. CJ Abrams could be a guy that fills in there. I watched him do some things athletically that is kind of just out of my mind. They demote him to AAA last week, and he hits 3 home runs in like the first 2 days and hits like 2 triples. And the guy's just super good. Like, so CJ Abrams is definitely a guy that I'm high on, just not on this list because he's already been called up. He's already been called up for a cup of coffee and then sent back down really quickly as well. But there is like that. He's already coming up and down. Nick Gonzalez is further. He's further. I think he doesn't make the major leagues this year. I think he will probably make the major leagues in 2023. A lot of people have him making the major leagues in 2022, but he's slumping right now. He's actually not playing that well this season. He's struggling with his bat right now. I'm not saying I'm low on him right now, but I am saying he's on my watch list. He's on my watch list of potentially lowering my stake in him because I keep expecting him like, okay, Nick, you know, like, you know, you're getting this run, you're getting this opportunity, you know, like, figure this out. He has the pieces to be one of the best baseball players in the league. And it's like there's just something disconnecting. So usually sometimes when you see that, it's a potentially longer call-up for a guy like that. But when he does figure it out, he just explodes, and they immediately put him on the major league roster. So, am I out on Nick? No. Am I a little bit concerned on Nick? I can't lie. I'm a little bit concerned on Nick. But I do think it takes him a little bit longer to get to the pros. But I could see him really benefiting from the O'Neal Cruz hype. The Pirates have plenty of guys that are going to be really, really studly in the next couple of years. They come from good stock out there in Pittsburgh. And so Nick is going to get to benefit from, you know, O'Neal, and then, you know, Reynolds is already there. And then they've got guys like Indy back behind him. And so the Pirates system is healthy. And then the fourth guy that CJ Abrams, Alec Thomas, Nick Gonzalez, and Josh Lowe. Josh Lowe is actually on my position breakdown in the first episode of the baseball card investor report. I put him as a center fielder, I believe. That's in my top 3 in center fielders. His brother Nathaniel Lowe plays for my favorite team. Got to watch him last night. But Josh Lowe is a guy that I have been I have been scooping up his stuff in the off season, and I'm really excited about him. I'm glad that they were able to figure out a position for him. They kind of created a position for him because he's a true center fielder. Kevin Kiermaier was going to stay in Tampa Bay, and then they take Meadows and they take him and move him to Detroit, actually, because they had to find a place for this guy to be on the field. That's what kind of player he is. They traded a major leaguer so that their young stud could come and play. That's a total Rays move, but at the same time, that shows you that they believe in him and they believe that he will be, if not better than Meadows. So, I mean, that's saying a lot, but he has been called up already. He's been playing. He's in an early season slump. We're seeing a lot of early season slumps for players. I think there's a lot to talk about in terms of the dead ball, with MLB kind of as having this narrative of the ball being deadened because you're seeing, some issues with home run tallies and just some crazy stuff. So I read this stat in our Just Baseball feed the other day where Sammy Sosa had exit velocities and a WRC plus of insane numbers, and he wasn't even in the top 10 when he hit his 60 home runs in terms of WRC plus. And I believe it was in the late 90s. And of course, that was the steroid era and some other things that have to play there. But he would be by far way and above and beyond number 1 right now. And so there's something going on with the ball. MLB won't address it. I don't think we're going to necessarily address it on this sports card podcast. There's something going on. They're trying to negotiate, or they're trying to lower home runs, looks like. But it's really affecting some of the early the players that are slumping in terms of you're even seeing guys like Trevor Story not being able to hit the ball in the way that he was previously going to hit the ball. So you've got seasoned veterans that are still struggling as well. Marcus Semien struggling, Trevor Story struggling. We see guys all over the league that are hitting really close to that Mendoza line of 200, and that doesn't exclude some of these prospects that are coming up and struggling. And Josh Lowe is one of those. Josh Lowe, I last time I looked, he was either near or under 200 in his batting average. So, but I do think he figures it out. He comes from a really experienced family of major league experience, and he comes from a guy who's athletically the cream of the crop. So I'm not worried about any of those guys, other than I'm a little small bit worried about Nick Gonzalez, but I think he turns it around. And I will say again, it's a small worry. It's just enough for me to be I need to take another look at it. I need to take my blinders off of I need to take my blinders off of I'm just going to set it and forget it and invest in a Nick Gonzalez card every time I see one. And maybe at this point I'm okay, do I make a calculated play here rather than the obvious, just buy it whenever you see it, And so, anyway, so those are the 4 guys that you wanted me to talk about. I hope I didn't just ramble for 30 minutes on that thing. So.
No, you are setting the tone as a catalyst should, my friend. So the catalytic Kendall, Lefty McKee, my main man, host of the Baseball Card Strategy Show and the Soccer Card Strategy Show, and co-host with me of the Sports Card Strategy Show. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening to this episode brought to you by nooffseason.com. Don't forget to check out the Sports Card Investment Report and save 20% on the premium version by using the promo code NOOFFSEASON. And then, of course, our friends over at marketmoversapp.com provide the data to us, the graphs and charts. You can save on their product. You can actually get your first month for only $1 if you use the promo code NOOFFSEASON, all lowercase. Everybody, thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.